Of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. I'm dachi Jeffrey Miller with Warrior Concepts. I'm with the Bujinkan International, all that wonderful stuff, right? But got things happening all over the place. Anyway, the focus of today's lesson is to take a look at our kamae from a different perspective, right? We want to take a look at them from the perspective of being, that having weaknesses and holes, right? Things that people tend to not want to look at because they want to believe that what they're doing is perfect, right? But taking a look at it from those weaknesses and holes so that we can actually take our training, our lessons to a much higher level, okay? So, but before we jump into that, I have a little story to share with you, okay? So way back in the, early to mid 80s, probably, right? When Manaki Shihan, right, founder and leader of the Jinenkan, right, now goes by the name of Unsui, right? But he was Hatsumi Sensei's right-hand man. He was also a member of the Japanese self-defense forces, right? They're military, right? And so he actually came back to the States, and he was primary teacher at one of our Shadows of Iga ninja festivals that were run by Stephen Hayes way back in the day. But anyway, it gave me a really great opportunity as a very low-ranking person to get a huge look forward at where things are supposed to go, right? Now, he started with foundational things, but the lessons were always about moving forward. So, new guy, right? Well, not new guy to the art, but, thought I already knew a bunch of stuff, right? So we're going to start off practicing Gyokko-ryu, Ichimonji no kamae, Jumonji no kamae, Hicho no kamae, that kind of thing, right? And so here we are. I'm doing these things like I know these, right? And he says, okay, but you have to get this, right? And then we move into Ichimonji no kata. So remember the order of things, right? The order of things when you're working with your kamae, right? It's about kamae training, right? Is one, or first, right, you learn the kamae, okay? That's a loaded statement, but from a beginner standpoint, right, we learn the kamae. We learn the form of the kamae, right? How to take up the form of Ichimonji no kamae, how to take up the form of Seigan no kamae, whatever, right? Sounds pretty straightforward, right? And then, right, we learn some examples for using each kamae, okay? So this is where we're talking about, let's say we're talking about Ichimonji no kamae, right? So now, we learn Ichimonji no kamae, right? And then we learn Ichimonji no kata, right? In this case, kata doesn't mean form. It can, right? But it means example. So here's an example for using the Ichimonji no kamae. Because remember, right, unless you didn't hear this before, the feeling, right, in these kamae, right, from the Gyokko side, the feeling is I am so confident in my kamae that I can win with this alone, with my Ichimonji no kamae. That's all I need, right? So Ichimonji no kata is an example for using just Ichimonji no kamae, right? I'm going to shift this just a little bit, right? And give myself just a little bit of room, right? So you may not be able to see all of me, but you get the idea, right? So we've got Ichimonji no kamae, right? But then I'm learning how to use Ichimonji no kata, because remember, we start and end, for the beginner lessons, we start and end in the same position, right? So kamae first, kamae last, kamae always, right? So examples for using the kamae, whatever kamae that is, Seigan no kamae, Kosei no kamae, Bobi no kamae, whatever, right? So first we learn the form of it, how to take it up and how to position our body. Then we learn examples, not sacrosanct, never change kind of thing, because the third thing we do after we learn examples is we make variations of those examples. We make variations of the examples, right? So Ichimonji kata henka. The trick with henka, though, and we'll have another video, if it's not already out, we'll have another video for that you can look for, that talks about henka and how henka to be an authentic or a true henka, the principles and concepts being used by the example, right, by the technique itself with that given name. I don't care if it's Seon, Shihaku, Nichigeki, Ichimon's no Kata. I don't care. The principles that are being used to control the situation and execute the technique, right, have to be the same for the henka for that to be a variation of. Way too many people use the term henka as a crutch to mean, well, that wasn't working, so I did something. I did whatever was working. Okay. That's not to say that what you did was wrong, but that doesn't mean that it was the same technique, okay? But a variation of that technique. It's not the same, okay? Not even a little bit, okay? So anyway, so that was a huge eye-opener. Okay, so we're going to learn this, and then you learn an example, right? Get good at that, and then we're going to start to break that, right? So look at we'll try to have a link either in the description below or on the end card. I guess it'll be in that direction for you, right? The end card for that shuhari model, that traditional model for training, right? So the point is that this is the omote side of training, right? The omote side of training. There'll be a worksheet that you can grab after this. My guy will put together, and you'll find a link down in the description for it. And if you don't, well, there's always rewind and pause and taking a snapshot or taking notes or, being gakusei, being a student, right? So, but this is all part of the omote side of training, right? Remember, there's two sides of training. Can you see that? Not so well. How about if we use something different? That's the fun part of doing this live. Sometimes shit changes, and developing a mindset where it doesn't matter. You don't freak out. You just keep on moving. Okay. So the omote side of training, right? In this case, omote means obvious. Okay. You look at something and you go, duh, fantastic. All right. Genius. That's the obvious stuff. Right. What about the ura side? Right. In this case, ura means backside, but it implies hidden. Okay. So looking at your hand, omote, frontal, obvious, palm side. Ura, backside, part you can't see. Every time you look at a coin, whichever side you look at, heads, tails, doesn't matter. The side you're looking at is omote. It's the side you can see. Your insight, your intuitive nature knows that there's a backside. Okay, it knows there's a hidden side. And the more you can know about that, right, you can use those things because the bad guys only are going to see whatever he can see. Right? So if you're operating back here, things are going to be very, very different for that young man, young woman, whatever, old man, who cares, right? So this is the omote side, right? So forms, examples, right? So when we're talking about kamae, right, how we're positioning things, right? Seigan, bobi, kosei, whatever, right? Why the things are positioned there that gives you an advantage, right? So the omote side of it is, how does this protect you, right? The protective nature of it. I know, my handwriting, right? The protective nature of it, the advantages that it gives you, right? It's what everybody came for, right? Show me the cool stuff so I don't die. Fantastic, right? But just like with all things in life, you can't have the good without simultaneously having the negative, right? Bought a house, owning a house would be awesome and everything, except that there's no landlord that I can report to when shit falls apart in my house. I get to fix that. I get to pay for it, get to fix it. Then when I fix it, the cost of the house or the value of the house goes up, then the assessor comes back in and raises my taxes, right? So do I want to own a house or not, right? I'm not talking you into or out of. It's just an example, right? Same thing with martial arts training. Everybody wants the cool benefits. I want to be able to drop somebody like a rock. I want to be able to do X, Y, Z, right? But that comes with time, confusion, trying to get your head wrapped around concepts, learning things, right? Muscle aches and all that from the training and the rearranging your life so that you can keep ongoing regular progress happening. It's all the same, right? So same thing. We have all of this, right? But like I said, there's this ura side, right? So what that means is that there are inherent holes or weaknesses in any given kamae, Okay, inherent holes or weaknesses in any given kamae, right? And so these are the things, and to understand them, these are the things that the attacker is looking for or looking at based on their experience, their fight style, things that give them an advantage, all that kind of stuff, right? So when we look in the mirror, right, in certain stages of our training, like the beginning stages of our training, right, we want to look at that like, are my pieces in the right place, right? Based on the way my teacher demonstrated it, on this picture or snapshot in front of me, are things where they're supposed to be, right? As I move through things, I'm going to check to make sure that I have freedom of movement. I'm going to check to make sure that, let's say from Ichimonji no Kamae, right? Everything that I do when I draw this leg back moves my targets, right? I don't have to move my targets before I can pick up my leg because my weight distribution of my legs is wrong, right? So all that stuff is here, okay? But later on, you're going to mirror work or setting up a video camera. I don't give a shit what it is, right? But you're going to set this up and you're going to take up the position with your body as though you're the defender, but you're going to look at the image in the mirror from the perspective of, what if I was trying to kick his ass? What if I was trying to beat, break, or kill him? How would I get in, right? Way too many people stop at the omote and want to delude themselves into believing that I got a technique you can't beat. Really? Nothing is not beatable, okay? Everything, right? We have vibrant life, but eventually the light will get turned off. All that kind of stuff, right? So the trick is understanding things, right? Part of understanding when we start starting to expand out in things is understanding that kamae in any given school were developed to allow for the strategies of that school to be executed easily. Okay? Kamae is not a technique, kamae is a tactic. Okay? I position myself a certain way to close off certain targets, to invite him in a certain way. Okay? So if I take up Gyoko Ryu Ichimonji no Kamae, right? I'm inviting a straight on attack. Right? Yes, there's a guard, right? But it's not the same as Seigan no Kamae, right? So one of these things invites, angled attacks or forces angled attacks or forces go after something in front of them, and the other one, you can move in, okay? So they're nothing more than expedients, okay? But they're also tools, right? And they're really, really cool tools. But what we want to do is avoid the trap of just stopping here and then deluding ourselves into believing that once we have this, we're unbeatable. Because it doesn't matter what we think is going on, right? Especially if we're only looking at things from one side, okay? To really understand things, we need to understand the other side, what the attacker sees, okay? Hatsumi Sensei, now, when I got this, and he might have been talking about a staff or a sword or whatever, but what he said was mastery of a weapon doesn't stop at proficiency with the weapon, right? You haven't fully mastered a weapon until you know how to beat it. And that goes for everything. Sword, knife, Kusari Fundo, Kamae, Shion, Tangeki, whatever, right? So you haven't mastered it until you know how to beat it. Because when you know how to beat it, you'll know what the openings are. And so there's more skill there, right? Okay. This all goes back to Sun Tzu's Art of War, right? To know neither the enemy nor myself, I'm never going to win anything, right? Or if I do, it's going to be by sheer luck, right? To know only myself or the enemy, but not the other. For every win, I'm going to suffer a loss. It's only by knowing both myself and the attacker that I can be unbeatable, okay? As, forever, never, whatever that can be, right? So anyway, all right, so I don't want to miss anything on the notes that I jotted out here for you, right? Okay, so let's take a look at a Seigan no Kamae example, right? So we get this, right? So things are in place, right? The obvious side, the omote side, right? I have this, I'm facing you, right? I have this. What I understand for most of my kamae is that the arms are positioned in whatever kamae, right? They're positioned so he has to punch, kick, or grab either those things, or he has to go over or under at least one of my limbs to get at a juicy target, right? Which makes blocking easy. Has to be, right? Blood, sweat, dust, whatever in your eyes during this battle, and everything goes blurry. You might have to rely on instinctive response. So what I don't want to have to do is go around things, right, to try to catch it. I don't want to have to pick things out of the air with micro precision. Okay, so right. So here's the benefit, right? But from the Ura side of training, from an attacker's standpoint, like by absolutely authentically looking at my kamae, looking at a technique or whatever, from somebody else's perspective, from outside, right? How would I beat that? Okay, just like I'm doing home security, right? People go around and buy a bunch of stuff, right? Because see, now my house is secure. Really? Can the attacker see that? Right? What have you left open? Right? It doesn't matter what you think is going on. What matters is what he thinks is going on. Right? It matters when you're trying to learn the moves. But what matters is what's he see? What does he think he has? Those kind of things, right? So if I'm in this position, right, I'll back out here just even farther, right? So what most people miss is that this lead arm and this lead leg that are out there, 99.9% of attackers, roughly, right, see those as targets, right? The puncher hitter kind of guy is going to try to smack or hit that hand or arm, and the kicker is going to try to sweep that leg because it looks like, right? It looks like it's just out there. It looks like a target. How do I know that? Because I've sparred with other fighters, or I've shown people that came from other fight styles, and they go, no, that you don't put that out there. That they'll hit that. They'll grab that. Okay, I know. Isn't that cool? Okay, later, right? Later, we need to understand this. Okay, so I need to know that somebody might go after this, right? Which is why we don't lock this thing out like it's a stance, because then you have to unlock it to move it. We also don't have dead energy because then you need to fire it up to move it. So there's a certain type of energy that's in here, this relaxed energy, right? That allows me that when somebody comes after it, right, I can move that, right? It's hovering, it's not stance-like, right? Same thing with the front leg, right? But it's not about the front leg, it's about my weight distribution and how my alignment is here, so that when he comes in to sweep that leg, it's easy for me to pull that leg out of the way and not have it get tagged, okay? Little litmus tests. Once I know those, then I can use those as litmus tests to make sure that the form is actually right and not right based on a snapshot in time that I'm trying to duplicate. Because now I know more about it. I know what's going on the inside, weight distribution, all these what I call invisible skills that most people, they can't see if they're just looking at a picture, watching a video screen or whatever, and that they need a teacher or a senpai of some sort to help guide them through the things that they can see. And what they're probably going to do is make assumptions about. You know what they say about assumptions, right? Except in a survival situation, you won't be made an ass of, you'll be killed, okay? So on the Ura side, right, what we want to do is identify and understand, right? So number one over here is identify and understand the holes or weaknesses. I don't feel like doing a whole lot of writing today. Anyway, so holes and weaknesses, right? So it could be this thing that I was talking about where this is perceived as something they can grab or hit. The leg could be swept, whatever, right? I need to understand that. So it could be that in one kamae, right, they perceive a big old opening over here, right? But in another kamae, right, that opening changes, right? It could be, this just looks like, kick me in the groin, whatever, right? So, but we need to understand it, but we need to understand it from a fighter's perspective, and different attackers, different fighters, different personality types, different fight styles, right? They're going to see different things, okay? For this one, right, a puncher, speed attacker, kicker, whatever is going to see, groin kick. They're going to see a shove or a face punch or whatever. But a shoot fighter is going to see a tackle position. Okay, so we have to be careful that we're not just taking little snapshots and then missing the whole point. Okay, so First thing is we need to understand and identify the holes, the weaknesses, right? And then, right, you learn to protect those holes, right? You learn to protect those weaknesses, okay? Because now, and let me throw something else up here, right? That's okay. This is something that a teacher gave me a long, long time ago with different phases of training, right? So phase one of your training, right? And that's how you handle things that aren't serving you. Cast them out. All right. So first phase of your training is all about you. You. You've always wanted to be about you. There you go, right? So it's about how I position my body, balance, movement, all that kind of stuff. It's about me, right? Second phase of my training is about him. Everything I do that I learned here now has to be positioned, move, timing, all that stuff relative to what he's doing. Here, doesn't matter what's going on. You're just trying to learn where to put your foot, where to put your hand, all that. Here, he gets to lead the dance. Here, the attacker is never wrong. Okay? So to understand Tai Sabaki, right? Proper body management, right? I'm not just avoiding an attack like I might be here because I'm just trying to learn it, right? As long as I don't get hit, we're good, right? Here, I want to avoid the attack while simultaneously opening up his targets, closing mine, right? Making myself more secure, but making him less, okay? All at the same time with one move, okay? So phase one of my training is about me. Phase two about my training is about him, okay? Phase three of my training is about us. It's this back and forth defense to offense transition, right? There's the rhythm of the fight. There's the breath of the fight, these kind of things, right? That sooner or later, somebody's going to make the wrong mistake or the right mistake at the wrong time, whatever, right? And it's going to be exploited by the other person because they just happened to catch it. And so that's why in the beginning training in our curriculum, right, you get step-by-step things, teacher shows, right? And you do, right? There is no henka. Here, a couple of options are given, right? You might end up here if his hands are high. You might go here. If his hands are low, you go up here. So you start to recognize opportunities and you don't get so fixed on only one way, right? And timing and angling and distance and all that is more crucial, right? Here, one of the drills we have for black belt training is we'll take a kata, and what we'll do is we'll do the first part of it where the defender wins, right? And then what we'll do is we'll give the attacker a counter to the defender's shot that was supposed to end the fight, right? Or give them the advantage. And the attacker will counter that and they do something of their own so they win. And then the defender will counter the counter so they can come back in and win. And then you get it? Back and forth. So what's happening is advanced level people understand that whoever does the most right things at the best time and either doesn't get caught with bad things or is minimizing the number of mistakes that are made, whichever combatant, right? Universal justice says they're going to win, okay? So at this point, we get off of our moral high ground, like I'm the good guy, so there I should win. All right, Bubba, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes bad shit happens to good people because the bad guy is better, sneakier, more maneuverable, or you just aren't good enough or don't make, you make too many mistakes or whatever. And so, fairy tale land was left behind with the books when we were growing up, right? Nobody wants to hear that shit either, right? Because it pops the fantasy of being the invincible warrior. You want to be invincible? Learn all this shit. You got to learn both sides, okay? And you have to accept the fact that you could still lose. That's what's behind the samurai's acceptance of death. Doesn't mean the samurai wants to die. Just recognizes that if I step into this arena, I could die. And if you're not willing to accept that, don't step up. Okay? Don't step up. Same thing with people doing dumb shit and whatnot, right? And you know that it's wrong, but if you end up, you get caught and then, see the man, those, I don't think those should be like against the law. no shit. You don't think it should be against the law because you want to do it, right? That's how way a 6-year-old thinks. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Okay, they don't think outside their own bubble. They don't think about the consequences that other people will face. Nothing like that, right? Okay, because it's all about them, right? Anyway, right? So we identify and understand the holes or the weaknesses, right? And then we learn to protect them, right? During this Friday's virtual class that's coming up, right? The doors will be open for that shortly here if you're on live. What we're going to be taking a look at are attacks and whatnot that will exploit these weaknesses and how to cover them up, right? So we learn to protect them. Okay, so like that example, Seigan no Kamae, this is just floating there. So if he does happen to grab a hold of it, right, I can do a te hodoki and escape from it. But more likely what's going to happen is when he reaches out to hit it or grab it, my flinch response is going to take it away and I can bring it right back. So I'm not stiff to where I'm going to have to relax to move, and I'm not dead where I have to gear up to move, right? Same thing with the lead leg, right? If I have to lean back because the distance between my feet or my hips aren't aligned with my back leg or my back foot, that if I have to do this to move, right, that's where all these misinformed or underinformed instructors that are online, they're all over YouTube, right, teaching that you got to add some other stuff, right, to your Seigan and stuff because, well, that's just too slow against a speed fighter. Say the same thing Manaka Sensei said all those years ago. If that's what you believe, you need more training, okay? Because I can look at him and go, well, of course you can't move very quickly in your kamae because your weight distribution and your form is wrong. Okay? So instead of trying to come in with other theories to fix it, how about if you learn what's supposed to be done so that you fix it? Okay? Anyway, but people like to make assumptions. I like to jump in and just, get ahead of things and all that, right? So anyway, you learn to protect, right? So we'll cover a bunch of those things. Some of them might be, well, here's an advanced way to do it, right? Okay. The goal in Ninjutsu or in Budo Taijutsu is that you start with Shizen no Kamae, right? So you learn how to move from here and all that, right? And you end in Shizen Tai, natural body, okay? So what that means is you're just able to adapt and go through these things, okay? So when I learn to protect them, right, one of the things I might do is pay attention to his fight style. So I'm not going to take up a kamae that his fight style will see and exploit a given hole. Okay? How about if I do that, right? How about if maybe I don't start in kamae, right? Or I started maybe a loose ehen kind of thing, right? So it's much more low. And then when he punches, I only take up kamae long enough to deliver that counter strike. So in the instant I'm going to kamae and delivering a counter strike, he doesn't see it. Because remember that perceptual gap, about 200, 250 milliseconds between something happening and hitting the eye, right? To get processed by the brain and then we recognize it, right? So if I do it within the perceptual gap, then it's invisible. And so what he sees is me not quite in kamae and not in kamae. So he never sees that thing. So he doesn't have time, right? Or wherewithal to exploit the hole, right? And there's, other things that we can do from there. But the advanced version is we move around in kind of a Shizen-like way. And then when it comes in, we do it. And then we've shifted to something more neutral that goes. And I'll cover that here in a little bit more, right? And then the last thing we do is we learn to use, and that was the subtext of this lesson, right? Learn to use the holes for control, right? I'm going to learn to use those things to control and manipulate his perceptions, his decision-making, and therefore his actions, okay? And that kind of leads to what most people think of when they think of control. Right? Remember, everything in ninjutsu is, it's not what it seems, right? Sometimes I say inside out and backwards and all that, but then people get all like weird and twisted and try to make up their own shit and stuff like that. But the idea is Kyujutsu Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood, and the Ninja no Uge, right, deception and manipulation, are at the heart of everything. What that means is anything that we're doing is not what it looks like. In the beginning of your training, of course, because you start in the omote side of training. But if you go through the whole thing, right, eventually everything should be not what it looks like. Because if he knows what you're doing, If what you're doing is what it looks like you're doing, he's going to defend against it. He's going to beat it. I know you guys, those of you who've been watching consistently with these things, you hear me say the same things because there's only like 5 or 6 core principles that you need to get. But there's how many different ways those things can show up. Okay. So anyway, here's what most people do when they think of control, right? Controlling somebody, right? I don't care if it's a parent trying to control their child and get them to do something like clean their room or whatever. I don't care if it's a teacher trying to do that. I don't care if it's you trying to get the bad guy to do something, or you're trying to do something to the bad guy, trying to put him down on the ground on his face. I'm going to use an arm bar or whatever. Okay. Most people think of control from the perspective of force. Okay. So I'm going to convince you, cajole you, I'm going to threaten you, I'm going to whatever, right? It's all this big, almost obvious stuff. Well, the problem with this is that as soon as force is applied, resistance is applied because nobody likes to be forced to do anything. Do you? Okay. From a ninja standpoint, right? Control happens long before physical activity takes place. It happens long before thoughts or ideas or plans are created. Okay. So if you want to control somebody, you don't force them to do things. You don't argue with them, try to convince them and all that kind of stuff. What you do is you control their perceptions, right? So one thing is you're influencing. There's 2 letters there. Influencing, right? Their perceptions about what's going on. Okay, about what's going on. So in the Uda stage, take up Seigan no kamae, right? I'm going to take it up based on, this is my weapon, knowing that he's probably going to go after this. And when he goes after it, right, we can pull that away. And now that he's much, much closer, I can stab him in the eye, or I can catch that hand, or I can kick him, or whatever, right? Or if I know that somebody, they start moving around, right? They're all Taekwondo-ish and they're way high, or Muay Thai and whatnot. And I've done my research and I know that they're a kicker and they see that apparent weakness, I can be able to help themselves because it's right there. They know how to do that. They know how to do that. But what I have to do is I have to look like I don't know if that's even a possibility because, like, right? Can't get me. I'm the gingerbread man, right? And then when he comes for that leg and I pull that away and counter kick him or catch him in the process of him missing, see, life changes for the young man, right? So what I want to do is I want to influence their perceptions, because if I influence somebody's perceptions, their beliefs, right, about what's going on, about themselves, about the world, about the interaction between the two, if I influence their perceptions, I automatically influence their thoughts, their words, plans, their decisions, and their actions. No force. And if I do it right, they think it was their idea. They don't think it was my idea at all. So when they mess up, when they cave, when they fail, they look to themselves. Man, if I didn't do that thing, right? Oh, I could have won. But if you do this kind of thing and they win, they know who did it. Now they want to get you back. Okay? So Ninjutsu is not what everybody's trying to turn it into. Right? Budo is Budo, right? Budo is handling conflict, engaging in conflict, right? Ninpo, it includes Budo, but it's the Ura side. Okay? So let's look at 3 ways, right, that I'll give you today. 3 ways to use the weaknesses against him. And again, it's kind of match the first thing we're taking a look at. But I mentioned one of these, right? So if we're using, let's see, kamae for control. Okay? First, right? Remember, we understand the weaknesses, we understand the holes, but now we're going to look at them and choose our kamae based on his fight style. based on the way he's moving and the clues he's giving me about what he's all about, right? So unless you're fighting another ninja who's pulling the same shit you are, okay, in which case you got to train for that too, okay? So we're going to learn to use, or we're going to learn to choose kamae based on style, right? Based on fight style. This guy's moving around like a wrestler, right? That should tell you certain things to use, right? Might go to ichimonji, that kind of thing, or I might even take up kind of a modified hoko. So when he comes in here with that shoot fight thing, right, I can go to hicho and knee him in the face, right? And have my hands above the back of his head. I know you can't do that in an MMA fight, but I don't train for MMA fights. I train for dropping somebody's ass on the street outside, right? Okay. So I choose kamae based on style. Okay. Second thing, right, is I want to learn to create openings, right? So what I might do is he's about to move in on me, right? That kind of thing. And so what I end up doing is maybe I go from Seigan, he's moving in, he's looking for a good shot, and right, so I relax into an ichimonji. So it opens up this target, right? What I'm doing is I'm learning to create openings, right? Create openings first that he'll take, right? It baits him. I'm gonna create openings that he'll take. Again, based on fight style, right? Okay. If this guy, somebody wants to get held on my body, right? And I'm used to kamae that's way too far away, and he has to grab my wrist or whatever. That's a whole different scenario. Okay. So what I might want to do is use things that allow him to come in, so he can start to do that, and then I can borrow my jumonji to knock those arms away or whatever it is, right? But I want to create openings, okay, at proper timing. With proper timing, right? What I'm looking at doing right here, right, is forcing him to attack. Force the attack before he's actually ready. Okay? So this guy's moving in, right? There's a certain distance. So I need to understand distance, right? There's a certain distance that he wants to get at so he can throw that jab or he can throw that right cross or whatever it is that he's doing, right? There's a distance for that. And just before he's ready, what I do is I drop things, right? Or I create that space. Or in some instances, you can actually start moving into a defensive kamae away. And because he has this imperative need to get you, right? If you do it too early, you miss the opportunity. If you do it too late, you get grabbed, punched, or whatever, right? Or you have to default to omote training, right? But what I want to do is I want to move or create that opening at a moment where he's almost ready to go, but it's not ideal for him, and I force his hand. So now his attack has less power, less accuracy. He's forced, he's rushed, right? And I'm in control because as soon as I create that opening, I'm ready to move. You better be ready to move, right? Because you created an opening, he's coming, right? If he doesn't come within a count of 1/1000, move and reposition and take that opportunity away from him. So the next time you do something, he won't be, he won't take his time, okay? It's like taking the PlayStation away from, or whatever the current video game system is, away from that teenager who won't clean his room, okay? I take it, all the cables and stuff, you can have this back when your chores are done. It's amazing how fast they do their chores. And then they get it back. Next time I say, clean your room, you know what happens if you don't? It's amazing how fast that room gets cleaned, right? But parents often won't do the hard part, right? And then they wonder why teenagers won't listen to them. You do the hard part, okay? So I want to create openings at the proper timing or switch from one kamae to another, right, to make things happen. One of the cool things that I discovered after I tested for my 5th degree black belt, everybody thinks it's about, just kind of picking up on the sake and all that, right? But it's actually a gateway. It's a culmination of a certain type of training, right? But getting your 5th done, right, passing that test is an initiation and an introduction. It's a gateway into a whole new type of training where everything that you do is based on the premise of feeling his intent to go, feeling the sake, right? And eventually that turns into feeling the kuji, where there is no killer intent, but there's danger, right? And I wait for that. and my body rides those waves, rides those winds, right, to be able to operate, right? So things just keep moving forward, but we have to be willing to move past the fucking obvious. Excuse my language, YouTube, right? So anyway, all right. So I want to force his hand before he's ready, right? And then, right, we move into a realm where we're choosing or using, right, any particular kamae to mask our own intent. Okay. In the beginning, the way I introduce kamae to people is what Hatsumi Sensei used to call kokoro no kamae, kamae the heart. Right? It's like wearing your heart on your sleeve, right? Everybody knows how you're feeling, right? So if I'm in a jumonji no kamae, right, I'm going to be in jumonji no kamae this way, as opposed to this neutral and go anywhere, where it's more like a hira receiving kind of position, right? If I'm in ichimonji no kamae, right, there's that look and that feel where you cross this line, I'm going to kill you. Okay, it's very obvious, right? Very, very obvious. Kage no kamae, right? Kage no kamae. Kage, one of the names of the ninja way back in the day, right? Kage no kamae, shadow kamae, ghost kamae, right? What I'm doing is I'm using, because kamae, there's 3 levels to it, right? We've got another video, right? We'll try to put a link somewhere for it, right? The 3 levels of kamae, or the 3 aspects of kamae, right? In Mikyo, we have the 3 bodies. So they're Gyokoryu. Gyokoryu is Mikyo in martial arts form. So everything matches, right? So there's 3 physical form that matches this intent and strategy and tactical kind of application, right? There's a mental kind of thing, right? So there's the intellectual body, or the kokoro no kamae, right? The kamae of the strategy and tactics and whatnot, right? And then there's the kamae, the heart, which is your intent, okay? So in kokoro no kamae, kamae the heart, right? Everything matches this, or this kind of thing, or this kind of thing, right? In kotoryu, this would be the left side, left facing kamae, right? So migi seigan is not just right side forward. We have another video on that too. It's not just right side forward. It's you're in control of the situation, right? It's the ideal, right? Left side, hidari seigan no kamae, is not just left side forward, right? Could be right side forward, but it's more emotive, right? You're being overwhelmed. So it's adaptive to what's going on. It's more raw around the edges because shit's, you don't have control. You're having an oh shit moment and you need to make things happen, right? But with this one, right, maybe my intent is my ichimonji, right? You step in here, I'm going to kill you, right? But what I do is I take up a do no kamae, kind of, I don't want to fight, but I will if I have to. I take up hira no kamae, whoa, hey, just calm down, man, that kind of thing, right? So what I'm doing is I'm actually splitting the 3 bodies, right? So kage no kamae is using the body, the physical form of one kamae, to mask what's going on the inside that I'm really looking to do, okay? So I'm masking intent, right? So we're back to omote and ura again, right? So again, what we're doing is we are using our body, right, to show one thing, right? So we're pick kamae, right? That's the omote, right? That's what I want him to see. Remember that control thing, right? I want him to make all of his decisions and plans and all that kind of stuff based on what he sees and based on what he thinks I'm going to do. Kage no kamae for us could also include like learning some basics from other arts. So when he comes in, I'm not doing this, right? I'm not doing this. I might be doing this, right? Threatening to throw that kick kind of thing, or I'm up here doing, Muay Thai, or I'm moving kind of like a boxer, ready to go kind of thing, right? Because I want him to think that I'm a certain type of fighter. And then when he comes in, expecting to deal with that kind of fighter, he runs into something completely different, okay? And he now has a problem getting out, okay? It's just like hunting or trapping or whatever, right? Putting the right bait out. If I've got a mouse or a mice infestation in my house, right? Putting out the wrong bait, I'm going to still have a mouse or a mice infestation, right? I got to put out the right bait that they can't resist, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm choosing a kamae based on its form the only, it's the obvious, right? It's what he's, because all human beings do this, right? Well, except us, right? Within the first one or two pieces of information coming in, the average human being jumps to an assumption. And that's perfect. So you don't need to do much to trap the average person, right? So I show this obvious thing. So he starts, the chain of events start, right? It affects his perceptions. So he starts thinking a certain way, planning a certain way, whatever, right? And he starts setting up to be able to deal with that thing. But I'm using this to cover up the ura, the hidden side, right? I'm showing him the front side of that coin, but he can't see the loaded mousetrap on the backside that when he steps in, it snags him, okay? So, again, two sides to training. Two sides, always, right? In the Koto Ryu scrolls, it says Sa-yu, which is an old way of saying left and right, okay? Instead of Hidari Migi, right? In the Gyoko Ryu, there's the tiger realm and the dragon realm, okay? This stuff is all over our art, right? We just need to be able to translate it so that things move forward, okay? And this is all about growth, always about growth, okay? And growth, there's a thing in engineering, right? That growth or progress or whatever, right? All systems have a limitation. There's a ceiling, okay? In the human being, it's beliefs, it's character traits, and it's knowledge or skill sets. Those three things, okay? So wherever the cap is for those things, whatever we allow ourselves to believe is the top for us, or we stop our skill sets or whatever, that's the ceiling, okay? Like the old adage, a strong man cannot make a weak man stronger, okay? But also a strong man can't get stronger by doing the same things that they've done to get where they are. You will always hit a plateau, okay? To grow beyond the plateau, we have to change what we're doing. We don't do it faster, we don't do it harder, we don't do it more often, right? What we have to do is change the belief system. We have to change the character traits, right? It's just like this, right? We have to change the way we're looking at the kamae to get more out of the kamae, to be able to use the kamae at greater levels. Everybody, when I was coming up through the ranks, everybody aspired to be like Hatsumi Sensei. So much so that they would move around like him, but skip over the necessary skill training sets, right? To be able to use what he's doing, right? Looks real good in the dojo, but what about out there? I've got windows over here, traffic going by. So anyway, so that's what I had today. If you want to see more of this in action and some examples for doing some of this stuff, and also that ura level where we're protecting the holes and things like that, we take much more take a deeper look at it, right? URLs down here at the bottom right of the screen. Go to onlineninjaacademy.com, Friday virtual training, right? And you can sign up for our class on Friday. You can be there virtually through Zoom, or you can just, get the recordings when it comes out. Either way, you're going to get the recordings, right? $4.99 per class for a 75 to 90 minute class. It's cheap as you're going to get working with me, outside of getting these really high level kind of things. If you want to get down in the dirt and take a look at the details, that's where that is, right? So again, if you're on live within an hour or so, maybe even less than that, the doors will be open on that side that you can register for that class, right? And again, don't worry about if life changes. Right now that time slot is open for you, and by the time that day rolls around, work calls you, there's a family emergency or whatever, right? You'll still get the recording, okay? But it's a chance to be on, at least through Zoom in the virtual classroom, watch the training, and be able to ask questions. And then when you're doing things physically, because I can see it, I can give you some feedback, right? Okay. So that's what we have, right? And also, if you're watching this before September 30th or October 1st, 2nd of 2022, so you might be listening to this or watching this way in my future, right? But if you're watching it before that, don't forget that weekend, September 30th, October 1st and 2nd, is our annual Ninja Camp. And what we're going to be doing is taking a look at Ninja no Hachimon, stuff that was done 13th, 14th, whatever century Japan, based on the technology, armor, all that kind of stuff then, right? Same principles and concepts, what that would look like in the 21st century without guessing. Okay, without guessing. So it'd be a cool weekend. We have a virtual option. We have a live option. If you go to onlineninjaacademy.com/events, you can see the quick down and dirty of what we're covering and all that kind of stuff. But if you, we'll have a link down in the description area to go to the actual information page to take a look at. I mean, it's a full description of what we're doing for camp. Okay. So anyway, that's it. Next step, right? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to share this out to other people who would benefit from it. Okay. Other things are down in the description, right? Ninja, right? You're looking at this, the omote. Okay. The ura is hidden. Okay. Got a bunch of other things down there for you. Also on the end card, something will pop up, right? Take that next step, right? Keep your training moving forward. Growth. Hatsumi Sensei has always said, if you're not growing, you're dying. Okay. And that's it. Talk to you next time. Be safe. Train hard.